Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about the phonics worksheets. And before I go too deep into it, some of you may already know that I do a pre-test before 5 phonics lessons, and then I do a post-test after 5 phonics lessons. So I do a pre-test to see, with 5 objectives on there, to see what they know and what they don't know. And then I teach the lessons. I have worksheets based off of the pre-test, if they already know that lesson. I'm not going to patronize them and teach them the lesson again. And so I give them more challenging work to do. And then I do a post-test at the end of 5 lessons. I do the same thing with math as well too, but I'm going to be talking primarily about phonics. I had planned to do the post-test from the last 5 lessons with a review, of course, because it's been a week. But then also do the pre-test for the next set of 5 lessons. That's what I always do. I do the post-test with a review, and then I do a pre-test. The problem is, with this being kind of a crazy time right now, I didn't really want to send home any tests this week, just because I wanted to give all the parents a chance to kind of figure out the game plan for how this is going to look like at home. And then probably next week I'll start sending home tests, and then we'll discuss that more later. But then I also couldn't really send home a pre-test and expect them to come back right away. So I decided not to do the post-test. I decided, you know what, instead of sending home a pre-test, I'm just going to send home the worksheets, the regular worksheets without the challenge worksheets. So if your kiddo already knows this stuff, that's great. It'll be a nice review for them. And if your kid doesn't, well, then it's a good thing that we're sending this home. So, and then we'll put together something about what the next set is going to look like for next week. So I honestly don't know if we're going to be back in session next week or not. So we're going to worry about 1 week at a time. Okay, so here's phonics. Now, phonics has the clownfish in it. I've been corrected a few times. Or Nemo. And the diff worksheet, I believe, is a seahorse. That's the more challenging worksheet. But since we're all doing the same this week, all the phonics worksheets have that clownfish on it, okay? And then if you notice here, I have PL107. And you may have noticed since the beginning of the year, you've seen these worksheets come home. The P means phonics, the lesson, of course, the number we are on, and then what the lesson's about, contractions, and we're going to be working on have. Spiral review, if you remember at the beginning of the school year, when I sent home worksheets that explained each part, spiral review is something that they've already known for a while now. We're just kind of bringing it back to kind of help them just remember it, make sure they haven't forgotten it. And a lot of times it ties into the lesson that I'm teaching that day. For this spiral review, circle the verbs. And with phonics worksheets, I like to, as long as it's not a part of the objective, I read the worksheet after I teach the lesson. You know, I explain the worksheet, I give it to them, then I teach the lesson, and then they go back to their seats after we've done the lesson. I've done all the whiteboard work. They show me what they know on the whiteboard, and then they go back to their seats and they work independently. And once I'm done teaching the lesson, and every kiddo, I like to call it the meeting area when I teach a lesson, I've gone through every single kiddo in that meeting area on the rug and determined that they understood the information. They're sent back to their tables to work on, and then I'll read the worksheet to them. And some kids don't need me to read it to them. So I say, if you need me to read the worksheet to you, find the worksheet that has the clownfish, get it out, and then I read it to them, because I want them to focus on the objective at hand, not to stress out about figuring out what the words are. There's other lessons for reading and figuring out words and all that stuff, but today, for this part of the worksheet, I just need to know that they remember what verbs are. So for this one, spiral review, they're circling the verbs. We know what nouns are. It's a person, place, or thing. A verb is something that the person, place, or thing does. It's something that you do. And I like to think about, you know, you could see someone, if someone is doing this, if you can see them on the street, are they doing it? Something that you see, except for when it's something they're actually thinking. And so, but that gets a little bit more involved. But I really just focus on it's something that you do. And some sentences have more than one verb. So I'll read this sentence. We like to run, hop, skip, and play volleyball. And I usually read it again. Remember, circle the verbs. We like to run, hop, skip, and play volleyball. And it's been a week, so I might go ahead and do that first one with them. So what are some of the verbs that you see here? Run, so we circle that. Hop, skip, play. And then a quick reminder, volleyball is not a verb. It is a noun, okay? And that gets really confusing sometimes. So I try to put these in a lot of the spiral reviews just to remind them. So you can play volleyball, and the verb would be play. Volleyball is a noun. So we wouldn't circle volleyball since we're doing verbs. The next one, I dreamt about penguins. I dreamt about penguins. And you can always pause the video if you need me to slow down. Sometimes I talk really fast, especially when I've had 2 cups of coffee and I'm exhausted. I tend to talk a little bit faster, and sometimes the kids kind of give me this look like, slow down, Mrs. Allen, and so I have to slow down. And then sometimes for my kiddos that are struggling with English, if English is not their first language, a lot of times I'll stand next to them and just point to the words as I say it. So I'll probably do that throughout these videos, but if you know that your kiddo where English is a second language and you want to look over their shoulder, you can also point to the words as I say them as well, and there's nothing wrong with that. The next one, he blew bubbles. He blew bubbles. The next part, write each contraction from the 2 given words. So there are 2 words, and now we're going to make them into contractions. Remember, contractions are when you have 2 words squished together, and you use an apostrophe to replace some of those letters. We have already done the contractions with is and are. So they might need a little bit of a reminder, and they can peek down at the bottom to help remind them. That's okay. Everything is, write the contraction. Everything is. Below that, what is? What is? She is. She is. On the right side, they are. They are. Why are. Why are. We are. We are. Write 2 words from each given contraction. So now it's the opposite. We already have the contractions. So now we already have the one word. Now we're splitting it up into the 2 words. And I noticed before break, when we were writing the 2 words, some of them were still writing the apostrophe. And so I remind them, remember, now we're writing out the 2 words, so we don't need the apostrophe because we don't need to replace any of those letters. We're writing them all out. So they might need a little bit of a reminder, and that's okay. So someone's. So write the 2 words inside of someone's, and don't write the apostrophe. He's. He's. When's. When's. Who're. Who're. There. There. Were. Were. Okay. Now on the back is the lesson for today. So we're going to be talking about the contractions have. So let's do a quick review. When we have we are, and we're squishing them together to make one word, we take this word, stays the same. We keep, I should probably have a marker out for this. We keep R-E. We don't use that A, and instead we use an apostrophe. So we have apostrophe R-E to make the word were. We have we, apostrophe R-E. Okay, so that's contractions. let's talk about the contraction using the word have. So we have a word here like we have, and so you're going to use VE, okay? We're not going to use HA, and instead we'll put an apostrophe, okay? So when we have the word you have, we're going to keep that word, right? We're going to not have HA, we're going to use an apostrophe instead, and we keep that VE, so it becomes you've. We have should have, so we're going to keep should. We're not going to have the HA, we're going to have the apostrophe, and we're going to keep the VE and put it together. It's going to be should have. Okay, and so, and usually, like I said, during this time, then I have a lot more examples, and I have each kiddo come on up to the whiteboard just to keep them from being, super nervous or embarrassed. I usually have several kids come up at the same time too, to work on different examples so they can't look off of each other's. But obviously, because of time, I'm just going to read this to you. The first part, it says, write each contraction from the two given words. So the contraction we're working on is from have, the apostrophe VE. So we have the words they have. So we're going to squish these two words together to make one word and use an apostrophe to replace those letters. So they have becomes they've, and you write they've on the line. Okay, I'm going to repeat each one twice. We have, when have, when have, I have, what have. Okay, then down here, write two words from each given contraction. So we're doing the opposite. We're taking a word that's been squished together, using an apostrophe to replace letters, and now we're going to write the two words. So we have who've, so that's two words. The first word is that word that's in front of the apostrophe, who, and then the rest of it is have. So it's who have. Okay, so I'm going to repeat each one 2 times. I've, and remember, you don't need to write the apostrophe for writing the two words out. No apostrophes for here. I've, should've, what've. Sounds kind of weird, I know. What've. Some of these we don't use very often, but they do exist. We've. And that is Monday's phonics lesson.